Be very, very quiet.
The first A Quiet Place was a special movie to me. Not only was it the first big movie that John Krasinski both wrote and directed, but it was also, in my opinion, the best movie of 2018. A year where movie juggernauts like Avengers: Infinity War, The Incredibles 2 and Bohemian Rhapsody made a huge impact. But somehow John Krasinski created a world so engrossing and atmospheric that it stood head and shoulders above the rest of the pack that year. With a simple horror thriller premise about terrifying monsters that hunt everything that make noise, he utilizes silence in a way that made you consider whether you in good faith could munch on your popcorn safely in the movie theater, or if the creatures on screen would actually hear you. However, at its core, it was a simple story about a family, about love and persevering, about hope for the future, about what parents ultimately are willing to do to keep their children safe in a world where any noise could spell your end. The film was a success and spawned a sequel in 2020 called A Quiet Place Part 2, following straight after the events of the first movie, where the Abbott family had stumbled upon the creatures' weakness, but soon find out that the creatures are not the only danger in this new world beyond the sanctuary of their silent homestead. Both movies garnered critical and financial success, and A Quiet Place expanded movie universe was now in its infancy. Fast forward to 2024 and we get the prequel A Quiet Place Day One. In this prequel/spin-off movie, we follow a young woman named Sam, played by Lupita Nyong'o, who is terminally ill and lives her life in pain at a hospice outside of Manhattan. During an excursion with some of the other patients to a puppet show on Manhattan, her and the rest of the patients get caught in the very early stages of the creatures' invasion of Earth, and Sam suddenly wakes up in a world where silence is key to her survival. Wanting to visit a special place in Harlem before she dies of her illness anyways, her and her trusty support cat Frodo goes against the government-mandated evacuation order. Along the road, she comes across Eric, a young English law student played by Joseph Quinn, who is at first scared out of his mind, alone in the metropolis hellscape, and clings to Sam for comfort. Ultimately, he becomes sympathetic to Sam's final mission, and the two of them must now survive in New York with murderous nightmare creatures that will hunt you by the slightest sound. Once again, the world of A Quiet Place is oozing with atmosphere, and the continued use of silence builds up tension and also urges the audience to try to be silent in those moments where the characters on screen are fighting to survive. I like the two main characters and they are both played excellently, especially Lupita Nyong'o, who makes you believe that something that would otherwise seem mundane, as to get a slice of pizza from a certain restaurant, is the most important thing in the entire world. They both have great chemistry on screen, and you buy into their blossoming friendship as the movie progresses. Also, side note, can we just take a moment to show our love and appreciation for Frodo? Best on-screen cat since Socks from the not so great Buzz Lightyear movies from a few years ago. I swear to God I would have rioted if anything had happened to that precious little furball. The creatures themselves also get a lot more screen time than they've ever had in this movie, and the way it depicts them as these stampeding hordes of unstoppable killing machines that can descend upon anyone at any time, anywhere, really nails home how incredibly unprepared humanity ultimately was to this threat, and I like that aspect of it. While I love the first two movies, and this certainly fits into the universe that John Krasinski set up, the movie overall feels unnecessary. I know that no movie in history has ever been necessary per se, but what I ultimately hope that this movie would do is to expand upon the creatures' origins and perhaps give us an inclination as to why they invaded Earth. We already saw the beginning of the invasion from the Abbott's point of view in a flashback at the start of A Quiet Place Part 2, and this movie sort of becomes that flashback but in movie length. And while it tries to make some connective tissues with Jaimon Honsu's character from Part 2 making his return in this movie, it ultimately just reminds you that the heart of this universe is Emily Blunt and the kids. I think the intent of this movie, and perhaps the entire A Quiet Place universe, is to tell close human stories with an apocalyptic backdrop to push these character arcs to their ultimate extremes. And while this can work moving forward, we should get to know more about these creatures than we do now that we are 3 movies into this universe. Overall, I found the movie engaging, entertaining and thrilling. As a standalone movie, I thought it was great, but as part of the Quiet Place saga, it was unfortunately the weakest of the 3. However, with the performances and the continued adherence to the elements that made the first 2 movies sing, I give this movie a solid 7 out of 10. And with that, this movie quietly moves into the 6th spot for me on the top 10 list of movies of 2024 so far, silencing the over-the-top violence of the ballerina vampire girl Abigail, but not quite enough to put a damper on the tennis threesome drama that was Challengers. Thanks for watching. You know this is an effective atmosphere you created when the thing you are most scared about in the entire movie is that damn exposed nail from the first movie.